Nigeria's fuel subsidy regime, foreign exchange policy and debt profile were some of the issues discussed at the just concluded International Monetary Fund meeting in Washington, D.C. While Nigeria Central Bank Governor Godwin Emefiele says Nigeria must adopt a homegrown solution to its economic issues amidst calls for an end to its foreign exchange policy, Minister of Finance Zainab Ahmed says Nigeria has a revenue problem, not a debt problem. Well, to analyze some of the issues from the IMF meeting is the CEO, Center for the Promotion of Private Enterprise, Dr. Muda Yusuf. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Yusuf, on this particular issue. Now, IMF Chief David Malpass has called for an end to Nigeria's multiple exchange rate regime. CBN Governor says we cannot afford a free float at this time. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think what is important in all of this is to ensure the efficiency of markets, because efficient markets helps to boost investment, it helps to promote growth, to create jobs and also boost revenue and also raise the level of investors' confidence. So that is what is critical in all of this, whether we are talking about financial markets, whether we are talking about labor market or commodity market or services market. It is important that we deepen the efficiency of markets in order to be able to accelerate the recovery of the Nigerian economy. Of course, the point made by the Central Bank of Nigeria is fine, because it's not in all cases that markets can solve problems. But where we have established cases of market failure, there is nothing wrong in government intervention. That is why in things like development finance, in things like agri-development, rural infrastructure and all of that, these are areas where the market has not been so efficient. And government intervention in those areas are okay. But in the foreign exchange market, there is no proven case of market failure. So when we see things that impede the efficiency of markets in the financial system, it has a way of distorting a whole lot of things and creating a lot of challenges for investors. I think that is the point that is being made by the IMF and the World Bank. But what is important is that we should not wish away or underestimate the importance of markets, while recognizing the fact that where there are proven cases of market failure, there is need for government to intervene, which is what the CBN has done, for instance, in development finance. Because in the regular financial markets, it's very difficult to get funds of maybe 7 years, 9 years, as has been provided by the CBN, or get the kind of moratorium or the kind of single-digit interest rates. So where there are issues of market failure, it is appropriate for government to intervene. But
now he also points out
to ensure the efficiency of markets.
I clearly understand you then. Now he also points out that we must allow, to balance out demand and supply while considering adjustments, in such a way that FX is restricted for the local manufacturing. Now, do you agree, or are we just going around in circles on this decision to allow a free float or not?
You see, for as long as we continue to obstruct the markets, we continue to have this kind of distortions. If you want to strengthen a particular sector, of course, we have other policy measures, like the fiscal policy measures and things like that, around import duty, around concession in taxes and things like that. I think these are some of the things that can be done. But it's important to allow the market itself to function efficiently and optimally. And that will help practically all sectors of the economy. And if there are need for additional interventions, we have the fiscal policy instrument that we can use. We have the development finance instrument that can be used. I think these are the things that should happen. Otherwise, we continue to perpetuate cases of distortions in the economy, which is affecting the confidence of investors. It's affecting the capacity to also attract private capital, which can even help to show up our foreign reserves. So those are the things I think we need to do.
Now, the Minister of Finance says we do not have a debt problem. She says Nigeria has a revenue problem. Now, for a country that acquires debt in order to settle debts, help us understand better, where you think the minister might be coming from with that explanation or statement.
Well, I think what the minister is trying to say is that if we're able to scale up our capacity to generate revenue, then we will not be complaining about the burden of debt. But for me, I think the starting point is to examine the capacity to service the debt. Because consistently, there has been this theory that when we look at our debt to GDP ratio, we are still within a threshold that is sustainable. But this will apply in an economy where there is a strong correlation between GDP and revenue. That is not the case in Nigeria. If you look at the agri sector that accounts for about 26% of GDP, how much revenue is coming from agriculture? It's actually the reverse that is the case. We are even subsidizing agriculture. If you look at the distributive trade sector that accounts for about 16% of GDP, how much revenue is coming from there? Because this is a sector that is also dominated by informal sector operators. So a large component of our GDP is not revenue generating. That is why this idea of now assessing our capacity or debt sustainability based on GDP does not exactly apply to the Nigerian situation. I think what is more important in determining sustainability is the capacity to service the debt. Right now, debt service to revenue is getting over 70%.
But then, Dr. Yusuf,
the current challenges of debt, yes.
But let me just come in here. But then, if most of the debt you're borrowing is actually to settle debts, of course, for recurrent expenditure, and not for infrastructure to help the sectors that will generate revenue, aren't we just, dancing around the issue?
Of course, I agree with you. That is the case. Because right now, with the recent supplementary budget, if you have 4 trillion for fuel subsidy and close to another 4 trillion for debt service, and these are first line charge. By the time you take that out of the revenue of about 10.8 or 10.7 trillion, what is left? So invariably, a good chunk of the borrowing will have to be used to finance recurrent expenditure, which is why some of us feel that the whole debt profile is not sustainable. So I agree with that point. We need to re-examine the whole thing, both from the revenue side and also from the cost side, to ensure that we have a debt situation that is sustainable.
Very much for your time. I've been talking to Dr. Muda Yusuf, the CEO, Center for the Promotion of Private Enterprise. Thank you so much for your time.